Canada and the United States of America. Precious, what is your footballing position as far as the World Cup is concerned?
Okay, that's a tricky one. I am not that very much of like a football fan.
I know.
But if you ask me about the team, being a Man United fan,
Yeah.
you guessed the team. Okay, I think we can close it. You've guessed. Well.
All right, Precious chooses to take it that way. We wait to see what they'll be able to deliver because they are facing, again, one of Africa's best today in their opening game, and certainly we want to see me and the African man here will support the African team, and the Manchester United fan will certainly take the position of the direction they are taking. But colleagues, even bringing the conversation back to studio and the budget, 84 trillion, up from 72 trillion. As budgeted last year, we do know that by the end of the financial year, we had spent more than 72. The PSS team informed us that we spent 78. So that is above the budget. Wow, what a country we have, even beyond the money we need. And I want us to start the conversation, even before we go into the specifics of what is being spent where, on what, and is it a good thing or bad. Just an overview of the ending financial year, when you look at it and how things have gone through the past year. I'll start with you, Precious. What would be your assessment of budget performance? And when I say budget performance, that includes service delivery in your community, in the things you listen to, in the things you read about, and the conversations you hold. Would you say that the budget performance for last year was excellent, was good, was average, was below average, and please justify?
Thank you so much for that question. Now asking me about my assessment. And I love the fact that you've given me a time. Average, good, bad, below. So I think I would say moderate. Because I love the fact that you took us around by giving us the estimate. Like we had budgeted for 72, then we spent 78. And then we see that they tell us the problem in the budget that was read. They specified some of the things that didn't go well. We had high inflation, then the exchange rates, and then we also talk about the microeconomic uncertainty, like uncertainty. I did not. Okay, I tried to make like my own research, and I noticed that honestly we went moderate.
Okay.
Because if you're going to see the exchange rate, let me say, of like the Ugandan, money, you find that our exchange rate is very low compared to like other countries. Because I think by now 100 USD is something like 370 something, and when you're going to like come into the Ugandan money and then you see that rate of living that we have, it is honestly not corresponding, and like the government is quiet.
The government has severally told us, even as we talk about the fact that our exchange rate sometimes it is not so nice.
Most of the time.
But for the past 2 years, our information from the Bank of Uganda indicates that actually the Ugandan shilling has been the best performing currency in Eastern Africa. And when you look again extensively in those 2 years, it is only for just 3 months that it was not the best performing on the continent. That should be very good performance, and certainly when we talk about the economy and how things should be running, we should be celebrating, not so.
Sometimes I do not want to question like the whole thing of like statistics, but then if we say it has been performing well until like the 3 months, you will find that the 3 months is what is in the know. But in actual sense, you're going to find that we have actually not been doing well. Because I had like friends who traveled, who came to like the country, and when they were exchanging, we were from Rwanda, and when it was time for exchanging, you would find that their exchange rate is actually high compared. So you find really 3 months. I am not questioning the statistics. I choose to be guided, but that is not the whole thing. Because also that takes us to the whole thing of like high inflation, the inflation of like the prices and the goods. So you find that really the exchange rate also contributes to other things. The whole concept of like macroeconomics, like the whole thing, it rotates around. So I think sometimes it's better if we address the big elephant in the room, other than just trying to look at, trying to make people feel like we are progressing, yet in actual sense, things on ground are different.
Thank you, Mr. Nwandinda, and because you have a keen interest in foreign relations, as we talk about budget performance for the previous year, I think when the NRM was making the assessment of their performance, I remember the Right Honorable Robin Anambanji saying at the time, which was about 3 months to the end of the financial year, we are now a few days, she says at the time they had performed 85%, and she said by the close of the financial year, they are going to be above 95, in her words. In the area of foreign policy where you have a lot of interest, you do know that Uganda has been very active on very many fronts. As we speak, Uganda chairs the non-aligned movement, the G77 plus China, the East African Community. We sit on the African Union Security Council. We've been very active in trying to resolve the problem in Sudan, the Khartoum, Sudan. We do know that Uganda has boots on ground in Southern Sudan, in the DRC, in the Central African Republic. It is true. We're also very active in Guinea currently, and many Somalia and other rumored spaces. I want you to take me there, coming from that angle and looking at budget performance for last year. What is your assessment?
Thank you, Phil. Like you said, I really didn't want to interest myself, especially in Central African Republic and Sudan. Yes, we have seen Uganda interest itself in those countries, but then, like behind the headline, between the headlines, what is the interest of Uganda? And you see, like you said, what the Prime Minister said. So I don't know her take now. Are we above 95% as far as this financial year is concerned, entering this financial year like she promised? And then how do they calculate, what instruments do they use to calculate that we are now above 95%? Yes, like you said, the budget has increased from, I think it was 72.3 trillion last year, now to 84.3. Yes, but then, actually, my issue is not the figures, whether it is 100 trillion shillings or what, but then, where is this money going and where is it coming from? Because we are saying it is 84.3 trillion, but the country is not going to spend the whole 84.3. 40% of that amount is going to debt servicing. So we are literally utilizing 60% of the 84 trillion. So debt servicing, and then what measures have we put as a country to reduce borrowing? Today, is it yesterday when I was saying there's a country in Southern Africa, is it Namibia, that has actually
cleared their IMF debt under the leadership of President Netumbo Nandi.
Exactly, thank you. So now, where is Namibia? At least we would say this thing is not for Africa, but Namibia is here.
But you see, Wilson, you see, that is an interesting story of Namibia.
Yes.
But it is also true that prosperous nations of the world also actually borrow. And when they borrow, they do certain things for their nations. If Uganda is borrowing and doing what it is supposed to do, and it is ensuring that Uganda is secure, and it is ensuring that even when we need to intervene in our sister nations to see that we solve their problem, but also that problem does not spill to come and affect Uganda, why should that be a bad thing?
Okay, that wouldn't be a bad thing. Like you said, nations borrow. Even we individuals, we borrow. We have debts maybe to service ourselves and maybe to run out from our problems. But then the issue is when you borrow, have you done what you're supposed to do with that money? So if you would see the economy maybe growing, the infrastructure is at the peak, you wouldn't be minding about the money that is borrowing and how it is spent. Yeah? So what affects the citizenry is this. Seeing that we are drowning in such a heavy debt, which we continue to borrow every year. We are adding on. Now we are going to borrow 36 trillion to finance this exact budget of 84. You see, it is only 39 trillion that is coming from the internal, from taxes. And where are those taxes going to be? Now they are going to be suffocating us. Philip, they are coming for your salary. Pay, you have seen it is going up to 40% now.
Yeah, the caps have been revised. If you're earning 10 million and above,
10 million
40%.
and above. So now if you are earning
10 million and a
you can
million,
imagine.
30%, and of course 20% for the lower threshold.
Yes. So you can imagine working for a full month for 10 million gross, and then you receive 4 million just because to the government. And then you are walking on the roads of Kampala, like you see them, service delivery is not getting to the grassroots. So that is what actually brings up the debate of the national budget. Now, I'm not against borrowing, but if we borrow, what are we doing? What is the reflection of the debt to the common person now on the ground? Yeah, we cannot continue borrowing. We are seeing actually, it is about 20 trillion actually that is going into real things, service delivery, infrastructure, what? We have seen actually the other larger part of the budget is going to the 400,000 public servants that we have. They have few what? Just
Thank you.
The luxury part of it.
We are joined by Mr. Asimwe Hafashimana. Asimwe is, among many things, the district youth councillor for Kisoro district, and a leader. He has been a leader at different levels in this country, in the youthful spaces, and certainly even in the private sector, but also in the education. And as we welcome you, our opening remark has been, how are you doing? Thank you for joining us. But two, the World Cup is underway. Where is your heart, and how has that heart performed so far?
Thank you, Comrade Mulisa. Things to do with the World Cup, I think that would be best discussed in a sports interview. However, I want to align myself in a similar thinking of my two colleagues on the national budget, but also how it is impactful to the youth, the young people, but also beyond that, is it true that the US-Iran war affects us in terms of economic reform, economic transformation? And I think I will definitely be able to align myself with that. And as Arya introduced,
Asimwe, you are
Yes,
not
please.
going to run away from us. You see, you were youth leader to begin with.
Yes,
and
please.
one of the things that bring youth together is sport. In our national budget, there is a budget for
I'm sure he was
sport.
watching the
He must have been, maybe. But also more importantly, you do know that Uganda is hosting AFCON next year. And that is one of the priorities of government, to make sure that the young people of this country get to benefit from this particular industry. So we cannot run away from it. It is an important industry. It is a critical industry that is employing many people, mostly the young people you represent.
I will not absolutely disagree with you. I will agree with you that sports is one of the things that bind young people together, but also not just young people. It goes ahead to bring close all generations. So it's not just about youth. And I think if I am to begin addressing issues regarding sports, entertainment and all of that, we would spend, of course, entire day, because it brings everybody on board. So whereas I came able to readdress the issues that are affecting the generation, especially in monetary, but also digital transformation, better access to markets, but also full monetization of Uganda's economy. That is what I think we should be discussing at the moment right now. Of course, issues regarding youth employment. Will the 50.5 employment status in Uganda, of course, hold the youth in large? So I think, to me, whereas we shall agree that sports binds all generations together, it's also imperative to mind about the major macro and microeconomic problems that affect Uganda. Of course, when you look at how initially the budget was presented, where do we fit in, how do we benefit? It is also on the same note that I'm forced to mark that a good budget is not a budget that will definitely be looked at how much was allocated to what ministry, to what department, to what agents and all of that, but rather how much it will be able to impact the Ugandans So it's not about the figures that were allocated to ABCD, but how much Ugandans will be able to experience about the budget, the 84 point, all that.
Indeed, that is very important, and even getting into the budget conversation. You see, we are running a 72 trillion budget for the ending financial year. And of course, we even spent more than that. We spent 78. And from where you sit in the leadership of the youth, and from your even preamble that talks about how the people interact with the budget, how have the people interacted with the previous budget from where you sit, and would you say that it delivered on the objectives set forward by the NRM government 2021-2026, but most importantly the previous last year that was operating the 72, did it deliver well for the people?
I would say that the previous budget addressed some of the predicaments, but also it was able to cover some of the things that I think in the initial budget that was presented in the financial year of 2024-2025 had also really looked into. For example, if you look at the theme has not been very much different. It's still about monetization of Uganda's economy, of course, market taxes and all that. But I think when you look at what I had already showed you in the starting points, I had already showed myself that there was an issue of an improvement. For example, if agriculture initially was at employment status, for example, it was about 40%. And if we see it at a reduction of up to around 37%, to me, I think that is an achievement. You do not have to achieve it to have, experience that kind of change. And when you look at the human capital development, in the same spirit, there was a little bit of an improvement in terms of the figures, even when it made impact on the human beings. But also beyond that, we look at more young people getting involved into commercial agriculture, because you are aware that in the financial year, people used to look at agriculture as just a matter of rearing animals, going to the garden and dig, do crop plantation and all of that. But today, it is looked at as a big deal for commercial, earning.
In this budget.
But also, whereas there are issues within funding, you see government and the Ministry of Finance have major economic priorities. And I think maybe that's why they might think that whereas in the financial there was a little bit of adjustment in terms of improving the budget, maybe they have been able to put focus on other things. For example, you would do tentative listening from the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Minister Musasizi. He has pronounced himself several about why there was a little bit of increase in some of the taxes. And when you look at, for example, fuel, but also even before you talk about the issue of fuel, you could also note that before the increase of budget, usually the government first looks at, even if we increase a tax on ABCD commodities, what is the impact going to have on the financial year, on the budget? For example, if they have increased the 200 shillings on every liter of fuel, will it generate revenue for the government? Also, will it be able to chase away some of the investors? But of course, you see in a long run, like we have already seen in the budget, the one they just presented recently, the increase of 200 shillings on every liter of fuel, it will be able to generate over 450 billion at the financial year. So that would mean that whereas there is an issue to do with, of course, we have seen wars in Iran, the US, that would not ensure that maybe Uganda is adjusting based on the exogenous impotence that is happening within those two countries. Because we have seen that year in, year out, certain things have been taking shape financial year, but the government increases taxes based on certain things. So also we address that the fact that we have conflicts happening between, of course, Iran and the US might not want to be the reason as to Uganda was able to, add the tax of 200 shillings on every liter. But also going to the ruling board, we shall realize that the Ministry of Education, we have also had issues whereby this ministry was also underfunded based on what we want to achieve, based on the lower revised level of curriculum, ordinary level, and all of that. So all those are some of the predicaments that I feel that they have also not been readdressed in the same financial year. But also, Comrade Mulisa, you also will realize that there are certain things that have been given priorities even when they are not adding value. For example, recently I was invited somewhere and I was literally asked to talk about the same things. For example, when you talk about the young people, the youth, we shall have good roads. We shall even have electricity. We shall even have, some of these infrastructure development, very good, very beautiful, the Northern Bypass, Express and all of that. But all of that does not add up if you do not have youth or the young people on the table. Because failure to empower the generation, it is like saying investing into priorities of the youth is an expense.
When you say not having youth on the table, what do you mean?
I literally mean that for as long as we do not have youth, young people, in higher offices to decide, but also decide on behalf of the same generation to be included, for example, in those priorities, in ministries, in agencies, in departments, even at lower levels. When you look at how the ministries were appointed, you'd also realize that we still have spaces, vacuum, on who should be doing what and what. So whereas it's like woodwinking. We have been given some few people to think that young people are included, but to me, I still don't think that is very enough. And when I look at young people,
Asemwe, very importantly, and before I engage Precious here, when you talk about hoodwinking because they have given a few people the positions, what should the constructive representation of the youth on that table look like?
I will pronounce myself once more again, and I think I don't want to be deviated. I said, having all that good infrastructure development without empowering the young people, the youth in that point, will still not bring us to the development that we desire. Remember, we are addressing the Uganda we want. So in my view, we haven't reached that kind of level of where we are seeing the kind of Uganda we desire. When we have a group of young people who are still sleeping on an empty stomach, you're not empowering the generation. The budget is not capturing all of that. The issues of unemployment are still a mismatch. I told you that whereas I have presented a few of ideas regarding the youth at the National Youth Council, the fact of being the chair of the youth of Chisoro, still we have that very huge gap. There is a big youth bulge that still do not earn 500K per month. Where do you expect these young people to be? That would mean that the government has not given a priority of that huge gap in youth unemployment. Even when there is a need to create safer spaces in agriculture, better youth spaces in tourism, like you have seen of the ATMSs and all of that.
All right, and we're going to that ATMS conversation. You see, Precious, the government of Uganda has a strategic objective of transforming Uganda's economy from a $50-60 billion one to a $500 billion one in the next, they say, 10 years or around there. And they say the sectors he talks about: agriculture, tourism, manufacturing, and other services. They do say that that is where the focus is, including ICT. And this should propel Uganda to get to that level, $500 billion. Not many economies in the world have that kind of size in terms of the economy. And when you look at what government has said by word and what they have done by action, and the action is, if we are talking agriculture, and we have put 2.2 trillion in agriculture, that is about 2.6% of the budget. A few months ago, Uganda hosted the Comprehensive African Agriculture Development Program Conference in Manyunyo, which is taking over from what is to be the Malabo Declaration, specifically handling agriculture. And the commitment by member states there was that every nation should spend 10% of their national budget on agriculture if we are to make sure our nations are food secure, if we are to make sure that the agriculture on the continent is able to feed everyone, not just Ugandans, but everyone on the continent, and making sure it is sustainable going for the future. I want to ask you in that regard, when you interface with the budget and this objective and the priority sectors as they have been highlighted by government, and the president really talks, whenever he has a microphone, he has to talk about these things. Are they in match? And are we going to deliver on that front?
Okay, thank you so much for that good question. Are they in match? What is being spoken out and what is being done on the ground? I will not differ so much from what my chairman, actually he's my chairman of my district, what he said. But I'm going to start with addressing like the issues of tourism. Yeah. Sooner I will be a graduate of Makerere University from like the technology perspective. And we have seen that countries that have embraced technology are becoming one of the first developing countries. We can take a look at our neighbors in Kenya. They have incorporated blockchain in literally everything they do. And actually, to my shock, I thought that when they were reading the budget, at least maybe ICT and STI would be among like the key priorities. But you can check from the allocation. Like you said, the allocation is okay. Like we should not focus more on the allocation. But then you find that the money that is allocated, it also helps us. It helps the ministry in speeding up the delivery process. Yeah. So the tourism sector, I think the government has maybe plans of segmentation of these tourism districts, and they go maybe, district per district. But we have seen that they are not prioritizing most of the things that would actually matter the most. A quick example would be in Kisoro district, there is the Mugainga National Park is shared by Uganda and Rwanda. To be honest, I seek to be guided. You will find that the infrastructure, especially the roads, are so bad. Some tourists, they come in Uganda when they want to see the value of their money. Like I am investing, I want to see the value coming out. But you find the roads are so impassable. When you want to maybe go to gorilla tracking, there is a time that you're given. I think by midday you cannot access them. So you have to go early. You find by the time you're traveling, there is fog, the roads are bad, the car is stuck for more than like 2 hours. So you find it is really inconveniencing the tourists, and you don't expect someone to come back or speak good. We have seen Rwanda use the whole thing of drones. When people are going to have this tracking, they send a drone to come and pick you, so you find you're saving time, and it is really giving value for the money where it is put. So why can't we prioritize some of these things? If we construct the road that is going to the national parks, we have seen that to the countries that value bird watching is actually a key aspect. So to the countries, the Spain values bird watching. So you find it contributes to the money that is incoming, and it can help. So if they prioritize some of these things, if we incorporate blockchain, it can help in incorporating technology, and it also brings in new people coming in. He spoke about the people, the youth who are spending, after a month of hard work, you're getting less than 500. And we have also seen that the taxes have also been increased. So you find if I'm working for 500, at the end of the month, I'm going to get 300 in my pockets. And you find this can only cater for my transport and for my rents. I am not eating. I'm going to sleep hungry. So if we incorporate blockchain, it does not necessarily mean that we can teach people. If we're having companies that are going to come and invest, we saw that in Kenya there is a company for blockchain, and they are looking at regional integration. So if they want to invest in Uganda, it is going to be a limitation, because in Uganda we have not seen. Yes, we have seen people roll out with blockchain, awareness, but we are still in the beginnings of blockchain. Other countries have moved on. If we are going to have blockchain, it can also increase on our input. Uganda's biggest export is also in coffee. So if a farmer in Mbale has harvested their coffee and we are putting in blockchain. Blockchain is where you find we are tracking things per segment. From the district level, then we go to the factory, then we go to the exporting authorities. So if we are putting blockchain, you're going to find that you are creating employment opportunities from these 2 different levels, the 3 actually. So at the start, we will have someone who is going to ensure that we now connect the farmer to the district level. That is an employment opportunity that is created. Then we are going to have an intermediary between the district and also the exporting authority. So you find if we embrace technology, if we actually give more keen sight to technology, tourism, and infrastructure development, it is going to give a bigger, shoot up to the budget contribution, other than prioritizing other things like, you see, for foreign direct, we also saw that there is foreign direct investment. If we're going to have foreign direct investment, it means we have to show the foreign partners where their money is actually going to be.
All right.
So we have to.
We're going to
money
pause that a little bit. You're going to build it more after this very short break. It is the Uganda we want, and we are discussing what actually that Uganda should be, even looking at the national budget, looking at where the monies have been placed, where they're going to come from, and certainly as we get into 2027, 2028, shall we sit here and say we succeeded at delivering part of what the Uganda we want should look like? And indeed, the people I have in studios are telling us what they think it should be. Has it been done that way? The assessment is yours. We head into a very short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back from that very short break. It is the Uganda we want here on Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is Philip Mulisa, and in this episode we are discussing how the Uganda we want should look like, looking at the monies, looking at the national budget, where the monies have been put, the priorities of government, and certainly what it is going to look like for the future. In studios, I do have Wilson Nwandinda, Nkurunziza Precious, Hafashimana Simwe, and they are breaking it down for us, but also torching into the future, telling us what they want to see, and of course calling on government to see that it takes up some of these ideas so that we have a nation that serves everyone. Wilson, you see, when I listen to Precious here, among the many points she makes is the concept of collaboration, even beyond the borders. She refers to Kenya and what Kenya is doing, and how the coffee farmer in Mbale should be able to reach the market in Kenya or wherever, and see that they benefit from their production, they benefit from their effort. As a people, she talks about the internet. Several I've heard people talk about how these social media platforms pay, but Uganda has not adopted, actually licensed the technologies that are supposed to allow that payment of content creators in the Republic. And I want to come to you as we look at this budget. We have a Ministry of East African Affairs. The Honorable Rebecca Kadaga is there. We also have a Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but in there, we even break it down to have someone in charge of integration, which regional cooperation, yes, the Honorable Haruna Kasoro now. Yeah. And I want to pick it from you now, looking at again how government is laying its strategies and spending its money. what is going to be the role of that integration we talk about? And I know you have even written about this. What is going to be the role of this integration? How can we get into this integration, and is it even achievable?
Thank you, Phil. First to give you a direct shot to that, yes, integration can be achieved, but under what process? That's what matters. Like you say, we have the whole ministry designated to that, but how far is it pushing integration? You see, integration is not all about sitting in boardroom meetings and just publishing articles about that. Yes, like you said, you have written a book, the viewers this interesting book, Understanding East African Community Integration. This is the basic knowledge that you can get just to understand for someone that does not understand. Because you are saying we are pushing integration, but like 70% of the citizens there don't even understand what integration is, don't even know how much we can gain from that integration. And like I write in this book, first of all, we don't have youth involvement in integration. Absolutely not. Because even when you go now, the other day I was asking a question. You see, in the East African Parliament, there are basically no slots for the youth. As you can see, I don't know that is deliberate or what. There are no slots.
It is to favor the interest of the youth.
Yes,
in
and
the
that
Yaka.
is it. And then for a region that has more than 70% of its population being youth, and then being represented by the elderly, yes, they should be there, but at least let the youth also have a seat at the table and discuss their own interests. Because those people cannot know what is hurting us as the youth entirely. We are the ones to come up and table our concerns. So the first shot on integration is bringing the youth into the process of integration directly. Yes, let these people come up, because I don't know actually what the ministry is doing. I'm not putting it down. Maybe it has also done a good job, it is there. But then what exactly is it doing? I don't understand. Because my thing, this is the ministry that should be coordinating youth within the region. Like we have seminars across the youth, and then they make ministerial statements and all that. I don't want to go so much into that. Getting back to the question about how maybe the local farmer can access the market to Kenya. Yeah, of course that goes back now to infrastructure. What infrastructure development has been put to enable market access? Because the road infrastructure down there is very dilapidated, and when you see the budget allocation to Ministry of Works, yes, now we have this the SGR, the standard gauge railway. We are all routing. Maybe if it's put into, because if it is done and completed, I see it will be a plus for the local farmer. At least that will be a quicker, easier way to gain access now to other countries. To go, I think, to Kenya, to Uganda. So at least the market access will be there. But still now it is in contestation. The other day they had given a contract to the Chinese. The other day, so the first son now say they either changing to the tax to Turkey. Now they have again withdrawn it via X. I don't know whether it is official or what. So it is still there hanging.
I think we've agreed with the Chinese firm now to do the work for the nation. But even more importantly, if we are in 2026, and we are talking that we are going to trade when the SGR is here, which is anticipated for Uganda to be done reaching Kampala in 2029. That is 4 years later. What are we going to be doing in the 4 years? And even as we get to that, we used to have the meter gauge railway. It is under renovation now. Why did it die?
I feel like many things have died. Of course, why do things die? Things die because they are not taken care of. We used to have a railway. It is not that we are the pioneers now of having a railway, but where is it? Why did it die? me, I always tend to think that these things are deliberate, maybe, because you cannot take on something and then you let it die into your hands, and then you want to post it. You want now to put on the same thing that was there. I don't know whether people want to take maybe the appreciation that I'm the one that now initiated this or what. But all these things have been there in existence. Maybe in the previous governments we have seen. But then, like, we asked, why did they die? I also asked myself, why did they die? Who has that answer? Why did they die? They died because they were not taken care of. No? But like you said, the SGR, why it gets completed in 2029, then we have, for now, we have to be patient. What else can we do? Because I'm not sure that in those 4 years, all those roads will be now standard to cater for transportation of goods down to gain access.
But see,
to the
look
market.
here, even as we try to say maybe government has not done enough, as we speak, yes, you talk about the SGR in the pipeline. The meter gauge railway is being repaired, and they have promised us it is going to start operating. In some sections it has started.
Yeah.
We do know that several roads are being constructed, not just in Uganda, but also roads that connect through our neighboring nations. We've also taken the initiative of co-investing with the DRC to construct some roads in there, so that there is market access for our producers, our traders, and getting in there to that market. We do know the contribution we've made in Southern Sudan again on the same issue. We do know that recently Uganda bought shares in the Kenya Pipeline Authority. We now own 20% of that entity, which means our oil is able to come from the port, to go through the pipeline until it is able to reach us here, and that has helped us curb fuel prices during this crisis that we've had of Iran and US and the Strait of Hormuz being closed. So government perhaps has realized there has been a vacuum and something is being done. And should we say that when you look at those projects strategically, Uganda Airlines is here. We have signed a deal to procure 10 new aircraft from Boeing, and things are going to get rosy, not so?
Yeah, let us be hopeful. I don't want. There's a side you are trying to push me, but I don't want to go there. But for now, let us be hopeful. Like you said, if the government now is awake and has realized that actually agriculture and agriculture, like they say, is the backbone of Africa. Like I was telling my brother here, Fashiman, we were saying about agriculture. I think agriculture has been allocated only 2 trillion.
2.2.
2.2, okay, to be specific. So in the budget. So you ask yourself why. Agriculture is bringing, I think, I don't know the percentage it contributes to the revenue, but it is a lot. But then when you see now budget allocation, it is given less. Even less than the other day somebody was joking that even the government is allocating money for charcoal and firewood. I don't know who cooks with the charcoal in State House. But what I'm saying, let us be patient with the SGR, gain market access. But then some other thing that I wanted to comment about is tourism. You see, when they're reading the budget, tourism was allocated 350 billion.
It is 300 to 500 between there.
Yeah, between there, but less than a trillion, less than half of it. So you see, tourism, countries actually, I'll give an example of Rwanda. Rwanda has benefited a lot from tourism, marketing itself a lot. So why don't you, and where does that really start from? It starts from diplomacy. It starts from deploying good diplomacy that can create a market for the country. You see, these embassies that we have in countries, they are not just there for posturing. These diplomats there, these ambassadors have a lot of work to do. They are the ones that would attract investors through those embassies. But what work are they doing? Anyway, take you back, what criteria do they even go through to be deployed? You have seen the kind of ambassadors that we have. We literally only have NRM cadres. You have been a good MP, you have lost an election, you now go to South Africa. go there, just there. They go there and sleep. So tourism has lagged back simply because of that. The image of the country outside, what is it? Because investors will not come, even tourists will not come to the country when the image their representatives are portraying outside there is not good. We have seen these things in Dubai. You saw what happened, the casinos you see the other day in Canada. A lot of things. So our image as a country has been tainted with very bad image, and this has scared well. And maybe that would also generate more revenue and a decrease on the borrowing scale.
All right. Thank you for that, Asimwe. We talk about the challenges that exist in the communities. You talked about the youth are not on the table, but on the other side, what opportunities have you noticed? What opportunities have you seen in how this budget has been structured for the youth, but even beyond the youth, the other members of the public, such that when they are watching here, they know after January, rather 1st July, I'm going to be able to look here, and that is why I can get something that is going to make my life better. Take us there and paint a picture for the youth you lead, Chisoro and the nation, on where they should look, and certainly what is going to make their lives better.
Literally, there are certain priorities that the government has focused herself into, and when you look at the continued support to industrial parks, you are aware that today we have a group of youth that have done courses into, of course, tourism, hotel management, and all of that. Whereas I come from Kisoro, like she said, it is evident that our roads are in a poor state. And whereas they're in poor state, that discourages tourists to definitely continuously come into Mugahinga and Bwindi, the national parks. When you look at the road that goes to Mugahinga, that begins in town, it has been demarcated for the last, I think, 5 years to be under construction. And I think towards the election, when the president was paying a visit rally to Kisoro, they did shallow work to assume that there is work going ahead. But I think that goes to the contractors, maybe, because if the government pronounced herself to construct that road and has not been constructed the fullest, then I think maybe the contractor. But also the government is watching, because I'm sure there is the supervisory bodies that do, and all that. But also beyond that, even our road, I'm just giving this as an example because we're very vast with Kisoro. The road that goes to Bwindi through areas of Ruhuguri, it is also more of a feeder road. Even if it was to use it for commercial reasons, especially for commercial agriculture, farmers, peasants find it very hard to transport their commodities from the garden to the main market centers. And it becomes so worse when so I think even when there has been a priority into continued investment, it has been at a low figure, it also means that it has not really addressed some of those things, especially when it comes to making some of the infrastructures better and lucrative for the investors. But also, when I talked about the industrial parks support, we have tour guides, or we have our young people who are listening us today, that there are certain things that you can venture into. If it means art and craft, there are people who are, in Bwindi are making money out of whatever art and craft they dwell in. But also the other young people who have steadfast capital that they have established some of the lodges around. These are not old people, these are young people. But also beyond the scope, I would want to also think that the government has interested herself into supporting young people, even when we know some of the budgets are still underfunded. When you look at the National Youth Council, it is our kurai. You see, you cannot talk about youth and you forget the funding of the National Youth Council, because even when there has been a shadow, a bit of supporting it, to us we believe that the districts are still underfunded, the district youth secretariat. But there are some districts today, when you look at, they are still operating under the grant of only 800,000 Uganda shillings. And of course you would wonder, shouldn't we progress at the same rate? Of course that comes to the regional balance. But also within the systems there, whereas we asked the chef to do youth being on the table, you realize that there are some things that happen without the knowledge of the youth. For example, it means from the budget process formation, who is consulted, we are not asked whether our budget is actually sufficient to support the youth activities within the districts. Even if it was to do into monitoring and evaluation, less or little is given to the district youth secretariats. And I think breaking it down, we have issues to do with, you have heard of the YLP funds, the Youth Livelihood. When you go to women, it is WEP, the Uganda Women's Empowerment Program. It goes below to grow money for women, absolutely. But also when you look at the Capital Youth Venture Fund, it is a fund that I have had problems with. It is too problematic for you to go to Central Bank where this money was put to access that money. It is also very shadow, but also it is not realistic. They will ask you a land title which you don't have. Even if it was to use your daddy's land title, your daddy must be in the know, your family, all the siblings must be aware of. And I think previously, I think in the last quarter before it was coming to the end, I had drafted my very good letter addressed to the PS Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development, because I personally tried to get that fund, but I failed, not because I don't have the piece of land or I don't even have it for the fact, but to be realistic, it was not achievable for me to provide all those essentials to get the capital. So issue to capital access has still been not prioritized, especially when it comes to supporting young people's projects.
That is very
so it is
important.
problematic.
That is very important. And just briefly, you see, youth accessing capital, because without capital, then there is no production. And the National Youth Council and other youth platforms that are provided for in this country, youth members of parliament, etc. But more importantly, the Youth Council. When you interact with committees of parliament, presenting your budgets and of course accountability and so on, are these issues raised, and what is the response from them?
It is unfortunate that the youth MPs, and this is on record, you are aware, youth MPs only have ample time to interact with the youth leaders at the time of campaign. Beyond that, it is business unusual. You even call these MPs, they want to respond to your phone calls. And I think there's the same note I want to use this family TV here to just notify, but also inform all those leaders that we are elected, that whenever youth are reaching out to these MPs, they're not asking for handouts. We are simply asking for a chance of opportunities. So it's not a matter of how much you must have spent on these youth that they give you the office, but also make it a responsibility that you are supposed to still pay accountability to some of these, youth leaders, but also youth in general, because I'm sure there are always voters in terms of delegates, but also there are always supporters who are definitely the youth and the older class. So, whereas your question directs to whether they make sense of our youth issues in the parliament, it is that, let me say this, what I would have been counted as a person who did represent, but also because the parliament of this Kisanja has just begun, and it is an idea of Kisanja Kuna Kurala, we believe maybe they are going to resonate with the other MPs, especially the ministers, who will definitely be checked as, or be checking these youth MPs as part of whether they are delivering or not. But whereas we are using this media to communicate to the public, but also to them, unfortunately they might not be watching us at the moment, but we believe the message will reach to them now or later. It is imperative that they should be taking caution of what they should be able to deliver based on their manifestos, because each one of them was making a promise. So even when we believe that when they are getting these offices, even at the National Youth Council, for you to go through as an executive committee member, you must have spent a lot of money. You were aware I ran a campaign with the one that had more monies. So the highest bidder won the position, and that is cutting across.
Well,
Philip,
what?
Please
Make that contribution quickly.
I just want to make a small comment. First of all, about the issue of youth MPs, that one has been there. And the other day I had an altercation with some former youth MP, some social media platform, and it was a time I was there. I don't remember, and I think I trust myself in those parliament sessions. I have not seen a youth MP just stand up anyway to mention anything concerning the youth. But anyway, we are also partly to blame, these delegates.
Mm.
You go there, you saw what transpired at the recent youth
Hoima.
campaigns and what. Yes.
So Hoima,
It's a do or die. If you don't have money, you don't speak.
In fact,
So these people, someone who has spent $1 billion in campaigns, will just sit down, just sit back. I don't even understand why a youth MP will have to spend $1 billion to go and represent the youth. If you really want to be represented, and it is you, the Afashibanas, that always ask for this money.
in fact, it's not
If
me.
they don't
If
give
you could make research, I am one of the candidates in the time of the youth that really didn't use money to influence voters to support me. And I think that's how I never made it for the National Executive Committee.
Yes, you see,
So I wanted to first correct that.
Yeah, I'm not saying particularly you. I'm saying your fellow delegates and what.
Hey.
Yes, they go there. If you don't give transport refund, if this one has given 50,000, the other one's come with 70, the vote has changed. So it's not the vote of actually power or someone that has the capacity. It is just the issue of money. But another question I want to ask Afashiman, what does the National Council do exactly? You are talking about the budget. What does that thing do?
well, rhetoric.
I wish I would
will
have answered it so
will
that it
have,
doesn't go unanswered because he's asking
well,
what
if
the
you can
National
do that
Council
in a
does.
minute, because I have to shift to another conversation, but please just give him a very brief
The
answer.
National Youth Council is a vanguard that's supposed to protect the youth from any form of manipulation. So whereas we should agree that it might have its own areas where it has not performed in delivering, in advocacy and all of that, but also representing the youth in the National Youth Council, especially if you come from Kazo, there is a group of youth that is there that must have voted that executive committee. So part of the youth from that executive committee of Kazo come to the National Youth Council to represent, but also present the issues that affecting the young people in Kazo. So I think that definitely answers your question. So it does a lot, but largely to protect the young people from any source of manipulation, from political leaders, from NGOs, from anywhere else.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Precious, lastly on this topic of the money and the youth, before we shift to what is happening elsewhere in the world. Look here, he has told us what the National Youth Council does. We do know that it is there, it is constituted. We do know that we have youth members of parliament, they are constituted. Youth councillors, youth chairpersons in the different, at political party level, we have the youth leagues, and there is leadership. And for me, I am asking, if there is this leadership, and government also says it has money, where is the disconnect that is stopping the youth from meeting the opportunity so that they can make the country better?
Thank you so much for that question. I'm still startled by what just happened. And okay, I wouldn't want us to go back, but you've said what is stopping the youth, yeah? What is stopping that country from bringing
Government
the youth
has
on
the
board?
money, there is leadership among the youth. You were a youth leader yourself. He's a youth leader. He is active in that space, and we have from the National Youth Council to the youth leagues of parties to the youth councillors to all of those people. What, in other words, what should they actually do to see that we change the conversation from the youth are not on the table, the youth are marginalized, the youth are not being given opportunity, the youth are not listened to yes, the youth are now doing what they're supposed to do and things are happening. What should be done?
What should be done? First of all, I want us to first go to the drawing table with this misconception that people have. We are in this Gen Z era where they feel like we don't bring anything to the table. We would not want to blame them for not thinking like that, because in most cases, we have seen when the youth maybe reach out to, he addressed the issue of MP switching off the phone. Either way, you don't blame them, because every time they trust us, maybe the youth, to maybe reach out to our fellow comrades, you're going to find me coming back, and the first issue I'm going to tell you is that facilitation. Yeah, we didn't give them transport refund, and they were not happy. So what do you expect me as an MP to listen in to you after giving me that thing as the first issue? There are other issues that can be addressed before we go into the money. We are actually the people to be blamed. If I have paid you off to get your support, I don't expect you to ask me for accountability. Yes, I know as a leader I should be accountable, but who am I accounting to? If I call you when I'm going to give you accountability, you want to first know if I have transport refund for you guys to go back home. So I think we have to change our mindset as the youth if we want to be taken so serious. That has contributed to the bad and maybe poor governance. We are sending someone who is giving us more money. We are not sending someone who is going to speak on our behalf and also delegate our issues.
You see, Precious, I keep my ear so close to some of the things that happen in the corridors. And you hear this youth leader spent 1 billion shillings, this one spent 800 million, this one spent 2 billion, this one was giving 500,000 to the delegates, this one was giving 100,000 to the delegates, and these are 300, 400 people. I even get to ask, we are saying the youth do not have money, but we also have youth that are spending in millions.
People
Are we
actually
being
do have
genuine?
money. People have money. Because right now as we speak, there is someone who has been saving for like the past 7 years. Because they want
That
to
is
come.
what they use then.
But they are going to come and give you money and you vote for them. They are going to come and buy you
If
all.
you have been saving for the past 7 years and you have 1 billion on your account, you are no longer in the youth bracket.
And these are the same who are going to come and we push them into parliament to represent us, the youth, because they had the money. The money has blinded us from seeing other red flags. You're old, but because you're giving us money, we are sending you in. Like, you don't expect an actual youth who has just graduated to be having those billions that you are demanding. If I'm going to take a loan, there is something I'm giving in. The moment I go into parliament, I'm going to first recover the loan.
Well, you hear that, and to the youth in the different communities and the youth leaders, such a question. Why are you asking for a young woman, a young man who has come to represent you at the district, at the sub-county, at the national level, and you want them to give you money from where? Do you have the money yourself? And certainly
Put
this should
yourself
be
in their shoes.
the root cause of the many challenges we are getting to see in our communities as a people. But comrades and colleagues, thank you so much for this insight onto the budget, but also the voice of the youth and what we should be doing and how the future of Uganda should look like, especially as we look at the money and how it should be spent. And you've had the challenges they have highlighted, but also where the opportunities are and how we should be interacting at that level. At the moment, we want to shift a little bit and talk about another matter again that should be very important for the youth of this country, but even the country broadly. There has been an upset in the geopolitics, precisely in the Middle East. For the last 3 months, a war in Iran versus USA stroke Israel, but of course, by extension, you have Lebanon included in that exchange. Of course, the Gaza problem has not been concluded. We do know that the Yemen problem has not been concluded. That whole region is not at peace. And this war, at peak, we saw the inclusion of even nations that have not been fighting directly, but the likes of Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, courtesy of the response by Iran on the attacks by USA, responding to the bases in those countries. And colleagues, when wars break out, people die, property is destroyed, nations collapse, leaders die, many things happen, many bad things. But we continue to fight. As we speak now, there are wars in the Middle East. There is a war in Eastern Europe. There is a war, if you come to Africa here, it's the capital of war. Sudan is at war, Chad there is war, Mali there is war, Guinea there is war, Niger there is war. We are fighting every other day. But sticking to Iran, and I'll start with you, Wilson. First of all, we've had the series of reasons everyone has given for the fighting, USA saying, you people, you are developing a nuclear weapon, and so on and so forth. But take us there, even not looking at the reasons for the fighting, but what actually a war like that means for the world, especially that the conversation has now been, we have people that have nuclear weapons. The last world war that we had, that quote-unquote world war, ended with a nuclear weapon being used. And at the time, there were very few. Today, people have them in plenty and more dangerous ones. What does such a war mean for the world?
Thank you, Phil. Anyway, to take us back on the US-Iran war, with a brief preamble of it, you see, like we say, the youth perspective, we need to understand that a war is not merely a misunderstanding between countries. Now, when we look at specifically the US-Iran war, it has been the latest discovery now in the decade of wars. It is the recent war that has put the world at tension. From the youth perspective, the youth out there should know that it is not just a matter of foreign policy, because its consequences have been felt far beyond the Middle East. You see, we are having this discussion here in Uganda right now, and we have felt the consequences of that war. This should be a reminder to all of us that the decisions made by these big countries, the consequences are felt in the whole world. Two big elephants are fighting, and now we are the grass that is suffering now. To take back the friction between US and Iran, of course it dates back in the 1979, the Iranian Revolution, when the Shahs, between Washington and Tehran, when the US embassy was seized by Iran. So it started, but then bringing back now, starting from the Obama administration. Anyway, to make the viewers understand, as of Sunday, this last Sunday, they reached a mutual agreement brokered by Pakistan, though it was signed virtually, where the contents of that deal have not been made public for us to know, but there are a few things that, of course, that we have known. We are in anticipation that if Israel doesn't attack now the Hezbollah again until Friday, that is when we are expecting the US diplomats to fly to Pakistan and sign that deal officially, and we shall see the war ending. But to see what mainly caused this war, of course, like I said, in the Obama administration, they signed the same deal that is yet to be signed here. But then Iran violated the terms of the agreement. It continued producing nuclear weapons. And Trump, as ambitious as he is, when he came back, now he had to make Iran now regurgitate that deal. That is when Iran was also saying, I'm a sovereign country, I have sovereign authority to manufacture weapons as long as they are not putting the world at risk. But we all know they are putting the world at risk. Because when Pakistan has nuclear weapons, the whole world should be on tenterhooks. And then you see another thing that actually sparked off the Iran war. Trump had his own word, because Iran is actually referred to as the #1 state sponsor of terror in the whole world. Iran, it tops the list of sponsoring terrorism in the whole world, according to Trump. But we have seen this. It is supporting rebel groups. You see, in Gaza, you see, those things that it has all been Iran.
All right.
But also, Trump was also making an agreement that wanted regime change. The Iranian regime has also been unpopular on the ground. And actually, the other day, we are saying actually the youth in Iran are not happy that the war is ending, because one of the objectives of that war that was set to achieve was regime change, which has not been reached. Even when the leaders were the Ayatollahs and all the top administration, most of them were assassinated by America. The regime has not changed, because now the son of the Ayatollah, this Ayatollah that was killed, is the one still leading.
So thank you for that. And you see, the Iran problem is Iran, USA, Israel, Lebanon, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthi. That it is a very big problem for the world. And certainly, whether you are talking about the leadership of Ali Khamenei, who was killed, or Mojtaba Khamenei, the new leader, and the involvement of Iran in the different, what you call sponsoring terror, what they call the axis of resistance, to support their nations in, first of all, being secure, because that is, for them, it is fighting for their security, it is fighting for their freedom, it is fighting for their land, it is fighting for their people. This is what Hamas says it is doing, this is what Hezbollah says it is doing, this is what Iran says it is doing, this is what the Houthis say they are doing. From the other side, they are looked at as terrorists. And we do know that even as we talk about Iran sponsoring terrorists, what we call terrorists now in those countries, the other countries that are also fighting against Iran have severally been accused of sponsoring terrorists in the different parts of the world, including in this very part of the world. But Precious, as we look at this situation in the Middle East, one of the things that came out of it is that Iran used its geography and being situated at that waterway referred to as the Strait of Hormuz, that connects the Gulf of Oman to the Persian Gulf, and where most of some of the oil, it is not really most, but about 20% of global oil passes through there, coming to the world market. And Uganda here is one of the countries that actually get our oil from that part of the world. I want to hear you on this issue, especially in terms of the governance. What lessons do we learn from how the situations in that area have been handled, especially for Uganda for the future? Because now, if we are affected when there is a problem in Iran, in 2022 when a problem emerged in Ukraine, we were affected and we were told prices are going high because we cannot get, fuel and, these grains from Ukraine, etc. What lessons do you pick from these problems that keep emerging?
Thank you so much for that question. The lessons that we pick as a country. Youth involvement. Like, by involvement, I mean we should be involved and have like that coordination with the bigger people in authority. Because like you said, you saw when they were bringing in the whole agreement, and then we see the war is coming to closure, the youths were not satisfied. Like, they're still pushing. There has to be the change of regime. So if we have that alignment between the youth and the people in higher authority, it can save us from those, future implications in case we have a regional, disagreement, or we are having a such war that is happening between the big countries, as we call them.
So is it the duty of actually other countries to influence the change of government in another country?
If we are technically speaking, it is not a duty. To a certain extent, in a way that if your neighbor, you as the neighbor, you're not supposed to come in unless they call you to come and speak. Otherwise, you may find that you're one of the problems that are causing the fight. So unless we really know what is happening, we should not get involved unless you are called upon. So, however, if you're going to analyze it critically, then it is right for another country to come in and influence the change of, governance and the whole thing that's we call administration.
Where does sovereignty go?
You see, when you bring in the whole thing of sovereignty, you have to first see how you stand as a country. If you're going to push for sovereignty, can you really become sovereign? Can you stand on your own without having other people come through? So if we are having other people come through, that means we are not sovereign. So you do not have a right to stop a country to come and interfere in your internal issues when you cannot stand alone as a country. Because aftermath effects that come up, you're going to call us to come in. So it becomes our responsibility to ensure that we prevent or we stop, if we can, the aftermath implications that can come up when we have a war that has.
Asimwe.
Yes, please.
People have fought, tens of thousands killed, including school children, the Minab school, 168 babies slaughtered at that school. Property destroyed, roads, bridges, buildings, a lot of things destroyed. And eventually, the people that have fought actually sat down and they are agreeing now why did they not sit in the first place? Should this be the way we solve the problems we get? Because the problems are always there. Even in Uganda, we have problems. Uganda and Kenya at one time have problems. Uganda and South Sudan another time we have problems. Should we always fight, yet we know we can sit and agree on these things?
From time immemorial, history has taught us that wars begin but also end around the negotiating tables. But I think the question still remains the same, that what damage does the war leave behind before a dialogue is conducted? Usually there are interests that facilitate some of those conflicts that are social, political in nature, but also economic in nature, for the case of a war that coexists between Iran and the US, but also on record worldwide over a war that involves the US and Iran. It is not just a regional issue. It is a global issue that affects everyone around the world. And let me just give you an example in Congo. The coexistent wars in Congo, they equally have a long-term impact around the surrounding countries, because we benefit but also depend somehow, somewhere, of what happens in Congo. You earlier pointed out the issue of nuclear weapons. You also highlighted Iran supporting most of the terrorists groups and all of that. I think when it comes to Uganda, I might not want to address a security issue at the moment because of how I feel about the same item. But when you address the issue to do with a table, how wars begin, how they end, they are long-term interests. Comrade Nwandinda has also highlighted that the young people or the youth in Iran are unhappy because the war is coming to an end. I have also recorded that for the last 2 weeks, there has been negotiations happening between the Iranian government and the US to ensure that they come to that table of agreement, and even it happened virtually. But still, the approach is still fragile to ensure that there is coexistent peace. And I think that's why he's also cognizant that if by Friday there is no more attack, then maybe we should have graduated that one off. So everyone is waiting on that. But also, diplomatically, when such countries, especially for the US and Iran, are having that kind of experience all together, it is a diplomatic threat. For example, if we have negotiations that are supposed to be happening between Uganda in favor of course, can be in favor of the US. We know Uganda most ties with the Russian government. But look at an example with Kenya. You must have seen Rais Ruto, the president of Kenya, into a G7 peace talk conversation with the other countries, including, you might have seen His Excellency Trump. But when you look at the economic terms of view, Uganda suffers a lot, and other countries that depend from Iranian exported oil, of course petrol and all of that. Whereas we are aware that in Uganda today there is a slight increase in oil and petrol and all of that, whereas there has, of course, an increased tax of the 200 shillings, and some we already looked into it before. We cannot exonerate some of those factors to facilitate what is happening in other countries, not just for Uganda. And we should definitely have increase in transportation. The transport fees will definitely hike up, and I think that's why there is a need for some of those conversations to take shape. From my little experience, whenever there is an increase in oil, you also have to cough more money on how you spend, because you realize that transport in fact affects most of the things that happen daily, day in, day out. And I also noted that issues to do with the same war, you see, having started historical classes, having been a history teacher from the training but also from the main class, I have learned that whenever a war begins, it is about the leadership. When you go to our neighbor country in Rwanda, the Republic of Rwanda, you have seen His Excellency Paul Kagame pronounce himself of why, as East Africa, we must look within our own mandate as African countries. But of course, we cannot also cover the idea that we have to a little bit be independent. You're right that for countries or for investors from other countries to invest within Uganda, they must be aware of the political environment, they must be aware of the economic environment, how is the taxation, but also looking into the issue of some of the remedies like tax exemption, how far do we go by investing certain factor A, B, C, D. But of course, zeroing it down to whatever is happening within the Middle Eastern countries. We have our young people who are working within those countries who go to look for survival. And at the end of the day, Uganda taxes that money as of late. So if you have a sister or a brother that has been working in the Middle Eastern country and has been working, definitely expect some of the monies to reduce, because a war affects most of everything. When you look at the Cold War politics that have coexisted between, of course, European countries, not exonerating Iraq and other countries like the US and all of that, you are aware that before the British colonized America, when you look at the American War of Independence, these are things that you must not run away from. And to definitely give you a clue on the same thing, certain things were definitely left with an economic impact. That's why we are seeing the economic war of 1929. And of course, the population was left, of course, with not a lot of things to do, not until when they were trying to recover from all the losses and damages that were caused in the initial stages. But as I said in the start, whereas the war begins at the table, people are trying to look at what do you need to achieve in this war. The stages of this war, like you said, as I conclude, they were looking at how they can have a shift in the government, the paradigm shift. And because of that, even when the goal has not been realized based on what the intenders of the war wanted to achieve, we believe it has affected global countries, East Africa, African countries, of course, looking at the Middle East countries and all of that. We believe that whereas there are those steps forward taken in order to ensure that this war comes to the end, we do believe that maybe some of the things shall have been addressed. Beyond that, there shall have to be retreat. Usually that's what's happened. That's why I think there has been those wars you have mentioned in Niger, in Congo, in Central African Republic and all that. All of these are countries that are hosting some of these terrorist groups. So whereas Iran might not affect, or where it might not affect US directly, it is also sponsoring some of the wars within. So it is not a simple question to just let it play like that.
All right, very directly. Thank you so much for that. And colleagues, our time is really much spent. We have exactly 6 minutes to come to the end of our conversation this morning, and I'm going to break it into two for each of you to give me your final, very brief thoughts on, yes, the situation in the Middle East, but also going forward, a message for Ugandans out there, if you have any, that you might want to pass through this platform as a leader or through whatever you do in the communities. I'll start with you, Wilson, in 2 minutes.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, my fellow panelists. It has been an insightful and good conversation, discussion. To conclude, I implore governments, especially us as Africa, we need to learn lessons. That all these wars eventually end on the negotiating table. But then, before we get to that table, how much have we had to lose? See, the signing of this deal, it is not because both parties have run out of bullets or missiles to fire on each other, but the war has affected either parties, and they have. There was a force that has forced the two parties to come to negotiating table, because America has spent close to $51 billion in this war. The US citizens are also squeezing. They were squeezing this guy Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War in the Senate the other time. Where is the American taxpayers' money going? We are not seeing anything. And then now also in Iran, Iran has had a lot to lose. Citizens have died, civilians have died. It has lost, but then we are going to appreciate diplomacy. It has been through diplomacy that at least we are hopeful that this war will cause the likes of Marco Rubio, these guys that have come up to negotiate and have the ports to Iran closed. That was the last nail in the coffin that has forced Iran to come to its knees when they closed those ports. Then another thing I wanted to, we are worried, Iran, you see in this war, it has made Iran realize its power. Iran has been consistent. It has lost a lot, but also this war has made Iran realize the power it has in the Strait of Hormuz. And us as diplomats and someone else were worried that it might continue using it as a weapon to bring the world to a standstill. When anything comes, it closes. But we hope that doesn't come. We are looking forward on Friday so that deal is signed and we see peace prevail at the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Asim, your final remark.
I will conclude with a quotation from the then great president Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, aware that Ghana set precedents to the African countries being independent. And he said that we neither face the east or the west, but we have to keep the pace moving forward. And global peace must be able to support national development, but also economic growth must give a conducive working environment for the youth to take up opportunities. And a national budget like the one for Uganda must be able to put the youth at the front, but also at the center, so that we can either negotiate issues to do with bringing, things that are meant to be for us, but also where we can see conflicts becoming none of the business, but to rather benefit the young generation, to ensure that they become who they want to be. And beyond that, we do believe that there is much more to set a precedent from, but also beginning from what we already have, to definitely acquire what we hope to achieve.
All right, and Precious, last word.
Okay, thank you so much, Philip, for hosting us, and to my panelists. It was an amazing discussion. And to the people who have watched, I believe that this conversation that we had has challenged you to go and see how best we can make ourselves, useful and also interest ourselves in these issues. Just because they're happening outside of our country doesn't mean they can affect us. So let's be more, impactful. And I leave us with a question of what are we bringing to the table? If we want to be heard, we have to bring value that can interest the people that we want to attract to listening to us. Otherwise, have a good day.
Thank you so much. And what are you bringing to the table? The table conversation is always a very tight conversation.
This is already the table.
But Nkurunziza, thank you so much for your time and joining us today. Nwandinda, thank you so much for your time and joining us today. And Asima, thank you so much for your time and joining us today. And to you, our viewers, thank you so much for being with us on the Uganda We Want. And I do know that the knowledge that has been shared by this very amazing panel has had several learning points, several points of recommendation and things that the nation should pick out to create the Uganda that we want. A special thank you to the production team and to the Interreligious Council of Uganda of making sure this is possible and brought to you. My name is Philip Melissa and good afternoon.